Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Custom Card Reviews. Just a quick rundown of how things go, especially for those of you who are new here. I'll read through all the cards first, then go back through and provide card by card and general feedback in the case of archetypes, then score on a scale of 1 to 10 based on 3 criteria that are design, creativity, and balance. Design refers to how well the deck flows and how adaptable it is. Creativity refers to how unique the deck or card is in terms of its premise and effects. And then the balance refers to the strengths and weaknesses of the card or the archetype, as well as the trade-offs therein. Again, that rating system is on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 being the best and 1 being the worst. You can refer back to this sheet anytime as I'm going through the submissions, or also see it in the video description. If you'd like to submit your own cards, you can do so with the link here, which you can find in that video description. I'm open to basically anything, from fully custom archetypes to supporting existing ones, to single cards, to joke cards, again, just about anything. Archetype submissions are capped at 10 cards, so keep that in mind. But if you include a dueling book deck list that has more than the 10, I will at least peruse through to get a better idea of how your archetype works, though only the 10 that you specify in your submission will be thoroughly reviewed. Final note is that CCG family tier get priority on reviews, so you can either sign up via Patreon or YouTube memberships, both links in the description. And if you're looking for a community of custom card creators and other Yu-Gi-Oh discussion, use the link in the description to join the Discord. Now, let's jump in. This is a submission by Rime Kairos. They are a CCG family tier supporter of the channel, so a big shout out and thank you for that. Their submission is 7 cards to support the Koa'ki Meiru archetype. So the Koa'ki Meiru is an assortment of monsters that are typically high attack level 4s who have some sort of stun effect, and are destroyed during the end phase unless you reveal a monster in your hand with the same type as that monster, or send 1 iron core from your hand to the grave. That's just the general rule. Some of them may differ from effect to effect. So this is an archetype that debuted around 2009 and has received just a couple of cards of support since, so probably a deck that lacks in the speed and consistency departments. Let's see what Rime has for us, starting with Koa'ki Meiru Infiltrator. It's a level 4 Wind Reptile 1900 attack. During each of your end phases, destroy this card unless you can send 1 Iron Core of Koa'ki Meiru from your hand to the grave, or reveal 1 reptile monster in your hand. You can banish 1 Koa'ki Meiru card from your grave, special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Koa'ki Meiru Infiltrator once per turn this way. Once per turn, you can reveal 1 Koa'ki Meiru card in your hand. Monsters your opponent controls loses 300 attack and defense. Also after that, all light and dark monsters on the field lose 500 attack and defense. Then we have Koa'ki Meiru Leviathan Fire Psychic 2000 attack level 4. During each of your end phases, destroy this card unless you send 1 Iron Core of Koa'ki Meiru from your hand to the grave, or reveal 1 Psychic monster in your hand. Negate the effects of light and dark monsters that activate in the hand, grave, or banishment. Quick effect, you can reveal 1 Koa'ki Meiru card in your hand. Set 1 Core Blast, Core Reinforcement, or a trap card that mentions Iron Core of Koa'ki Meiru from your deck. A card set by this effect can be activated this turn. You can only activate this effect of Koa'ki Meiru Leviathan once per turn. Next is Koa'ki Meiru Minotaur. If this card is special summoned, target 1 Koa'ki Meiru card in your banishment added to your hand. If this card is revealed in your hand, you can add 1 Core Blaster, Iron Core Armor, Iron Core of Koa'ki Meiru, or a spell trap card that mentions Iron Core of Koa'ki Meiru from your deck to your hand. You can only activate 1 effect of Koa'ki Meiru Minotaur once per turn, and only once that turn. Then we have Koa'ki Meiru Poseidon. So this is a level 7 Water Beast Warrior 2600 attack. During each of your end phases, destroy this card unless you send 1 Iron Core of Koa'ki Meiru from your hand to the grave, or reveal 1 level 7 monster from your hand. If this card is revealed in your hand, you can special summon this card, and for the rest of the turn, this card cannot be destroyed. If a Koa'ki Meiru card is revealed in your hand while this monster is face up on the field, except during the damage step, you can send 1 card your opponent controls to the grave. You can only activate each effect of Koa'ki Meiru Poseidon once per turn. So that does it for the monsters. Now we jump into the spells and traps, starting with Koa'ki Meiru Teleporter. It's a continuous spell. During each of your end phases, destroy this card unless you reveal 1 Iron Core of Koa'ki Meiru in your hand. Once per turn, you can target 1 Koa'ki Meiru card in your grave, return it to your deck. If this card is revealed in your hand, you can special summon 1 Koa'ki Meiru monster from your hand or banishment. You can only activate this effect of Koa'ki Meiru Teleporter once per turn. Now to the traps. Iron Core Era, a continuous trap. Activate this card by sending 1 Iron Core Koa'ki Meiru from your hand or deck to the grave. Face up, special summon monsters your opponent controls, lose 500 attack for each Iron Core Koa'ki Meiru in your grave. Quick effect, you can reveal 1 Koa'ki Meiru card in your hand, banish up to 2 cards from either player's graveyards. You can only activate this effect of Iron Core Era once per turn. And then finally, we have Koa'ki Meiru Sentry. Add 1 Iron Core Koa'ki Meiru from your deck, grave, or banishment to your hand. If this card is revealed in your hand, you can target 1 card on the field and destroy it. That is a normal trap. Now let's jump back up to the Infiltrator. So the Infiltrator, I think, is really great design. I like the additional hit on the light and dark because Koa'ki Meiru has a few cards that punish light and dark monsters, which I guess makes sense given the era it came out in when light and dark were kind of running rampant everywhere. The self-summon is also helpful for a deck short on special summoning, so overall I really like this card for the deck. The card whose name I'm not able to pronounce properly. So it's a solid tie-in to the archetypal cards that are otherwise disjointed, like the Core Blast, Core Reinforcement. You're able to loop all those into a card that is able to search them, because those are pretty good cards for the deck. They're just not searchable in any sort of way up until with this card. The other effect that same effect, I don't think it needs to be a quick effect. I'm having trouble thinking of a monster that searches with a quick effect that doesn't involve a cost. So even if the deck doesn't have the greatest search targets, it's still unbalanced given the fact that you're getting a +1 on each turn. So I get why you have it like that, because you want to be able to reveal some of those cards that have those disruption effects when revealed, like the one that destroys or the one that triggers when you reveal, and it allows you to send a card your opponent controls to the grave. So I get that this card is meant to be able to trigger those, but when you pair that with the fact that you also get to search it, to me takes things a bit over the top. I will say though that having another monster that has that standalone quick effect, or maybe just a separate effect on one of these other monsters that we've looked at so far, where the effect all it is quick effect, you can reveal 1 Koa'ki Meiru card in your hand and that's it, which on the surface doesn't do anything, but it combos well with a lot of these other cards that you've designed, which trigger when they are revealed. So that could be a different way to break up this effect to make it balanced. To the Minotaur, so another really good card for the deck. It's a good way to recoup the ones that are banished for other effects, whether that be for cost or like with that trap that banishes or any cards in the grave. The search effect is really clever, but like I mentioned, you have a number of cards that trigger effects when revealed, so pairing that with a search effect makes sense. It's thematic. It's a thematically themed. That's redundant. It's a themed search effect that aligns with the rest of the deck. I can't say for certain that this is abusable, but if it does ever become a problem, you could just have the condition be to reveal, special summon this card. Then if you do that, you get a search. So that would also get you a level 4 body on the board, which could possibly help with some other combos with the deck. The Poseidon. So this is the boss of the deck. I really like it. Like I said, you're keeping true with the theme of the deck, which is revealing different cards in your hand. And so that's the special summoning condition for this card, and that makes a ton of sense. And then you have that removal piece, which again, it's all going to be a matter of how much can you reveal on. It's obviously good to reveal on any turn, but especially on your opponent's turn to really get the most of that disruption effect. And overall, I really do like this card. Teleporter is another card that I think is really strong for the deck. It's like I mentioned, it's another way to leverage those banished cards, whether that be by the cost of your effects or the trap card banishing your cards, or even getting Koa'ki Meiru's out from your hand. So addressing one of the weaknesses that I mentioned at the top, where the deck lacks speed and consistency. So this is going to be able to get you to your monsters, get them on board quicker and quicker. And then you have the other effect on here where you can target a Koa'ki Meiru card in your grave and return it to your deck. So I'm sure there's utility here to recycle some of those cards, whether that be some of those search cards or whatever else, to be able to get through them again. So overall, this is a really good design for the deck. Now going into the traps, so the Iron Core Era, again, another great card. This will be the one that allows you to reveal, one of the ones that allows you to reveal those other cards that have the effects that trigger when revealed. You don't need the phrase quick effect there. It's just understood that traps are spell speed too. So it's fine to just have, you can reveal, or like once per turn, I guess. Or well, you already have, you can only activate this effect once per turn. So maybe during the main phase, you can reveal 1 Koa'ki Meiru card in your hand, banish up to 2 cards from either player's grave. If you don't want to restrict it to the main phase, I'm sure there's another way to word this to get across the fact that this can trigger anytime during your turn or your opponent's turn. But yeah, you don't need the phrase quick effect on a trap card. And then Koa'ki Meiru Sentry. So same thing is noted on the Minotaur. If this becomes an abusable effect where you can just reveal this on every turn to pop a card and destroy it, you could change it to have it basically as it is. If this card is revealed in your hand, you can target 1 card on the field, destroy it. then set this card to your spell trap zone, just so you can't just keep abusing it. Again, this is just based on me not having tested the deck, but that would be a way to get around it if you felt or someone else felt like it was too easily abusable. But otherwise, I think this is a great card for the deck. Another way to search out Iron Core, and then it has that additional boost based on revealing it with other cards. So, grading wise, the design I give a 9. This aligns super well with the Koa'ki Meiru archetype, and then it expands on it by having those card effects that trigger when revealed, and it speeds the deck up. It helps with the consistency, so it addresses the weaknesses of given the fact that the deck is dated. So overall, a really strong design. On creativity, I'm not much to say here. It's a good assortment of effects, so overall, really good job on giving the different cards, making the different cards do different things. And then on balance, I give it an 8 as well. So well thought out on the trade-offs and conditions. Just maybe a couple effects here and there that could be abused. Again, not something that I can say for certain without having tested it, but also not something that I think is overly busted. So on the balance, I give an 8, and that gives an overall score for the deck for the custom cards an 8.3. So thank you, Rime Kairos, for supporting the channel, as well as for your submission of the Koa'ki Meiru custom support. This submission is by Chronojet. It is called the Hirogaru Sky archetype. It is based on an anime with the same name. So according to the submission, there are 17 cards in this archetype, but of course submissions are capped at 10, so keep that in mind as we go through them, though I think we've got a pretty good idea of how the deck functions. And then also based on the submission, the gimmick of the deck, if you will, is moving monsters to different main monster zones to trigger different effects when they are moved. So that's the premise behind it. Let's start going into it, starting off with Hirogaru Sky Sora. If this card is normal or special summon, you can discard one card, take one Hirogaru Sky monster from your deck, except Sora, and either add it to your hand or send it to the grave. If this card is moved to a different main monster zone you control, you can target one Hirogaru Sky card in your grave, except Sora, and add it to your hand, and a hard one's return on both effects, so the standard starter of the deck. Moving into Hirogaru Sky Ellie, if this card is added to your hand except by drawing it, you can special summon this card. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add one Hirogaru Sky spell trap from deck to hand. If this card is moved to a different main monster zone you control, you can target one Hirogaru Sky monster in your grave and special summon it. So, kind of like the Poplar of the deck, it's even a level 1. So that is Ellie hard once per turn on all of those effects. Next up is Hirogaru Sky Princess. If you control a Hirogaru Sky monster, you can send one Hirogaru Sky monster from your deck to the grave, except the Princess. Special summon this card from your hand, then you can move one other Hirogaru Sky monster you control to one of your main monster zones. If this card is sent from field to grave, you can target one Hirogaru Sky monster in your grave, except the Princess. Special summon it, then immediately after this effect resolves, link summon one Hirogaru Sky monster from your extra deck using monsters you control, including the summon monster. You can only use each effect of the Princess once per turn. Now we get into the links, starting with Hirogaru Sky Cure Sky. Materials are 2 Hirogaru Sky monsters. Quick effect, you can move one Hirogaru Sky monster you control to one of your main monster zones. Second effect, if this card is moved to a different monster zone, you can target one monster on the field, destroy it, and a hard one per turn on both of those effects. Next is Cure Prism, which works in a similar light to the last card, except instead of popping a monster, it'll pop a spell or trap if it's moved to a different zone. Has the same material requirements and has the same quick effect where you can move one Hirogaru Sky monster you control to one of your main monster zones. Hard ones per turn on those effects. Next is another link to Cure Wing. Materials, again, 2 Hirogaru Sky monsters. Quick effect, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of this turn, then move one Hirogaru Sky monster you control to one of your main monster zones, and a hard once per turn on that effect. And then the next one is also a link to Cure Butterfly, which is kind of like the first two. This is like a mirror to the third one that we just saw. You can, instead of targeting a monster to negate its effects, you can target a spell or trap your opponent controls to negate its effects until the end of the turn. Then move one Hirogaru Sky monster you control to one of your main monster zone, and a hard once per turn on that effect. Now we get into the link 3, starting with Hirogaru Sky Cure Noble. The materials are 2 or more Hirogaru Sky Link monsters. While this card is co-linked to a Hirogaru Sky Link monster, monsters your opponent controls cannot target monsters you control for attacks except this one. Also, your opponent cannot target Hirogaru Sky monsters you control with card effects except this one. When your opponent activates a spell, trap card, or monster effect, you can banish 2 Hirogaru Sky cards from your grave, negate that effect, and if you do banish that card, then you can move one Hirogaru Sky monster you control to a different main monster zone, and a hard ones per turn on that effect. And then finally, rounding out the Link monsters is the Cure Majesty. takes 2 or more light monsters, including a link monster. So this is the one that doesn't require a Hirogaru Sky monster, though given the way that the deck functions, probably pretty easy to do within engine anyways. While this card is face up on the field, this card and other monsters you control equipped with an equip card cannot be destroyed by card effects. You can only use each of the following effects of Cure Majesty once per turn. If this card is Link Summon, you can banish 1 light Link monster from your extra deck, equip 1 light monster from your deck or graveyard to this card. While this card is equipped with an equip card, quick effect, you can target 1 card on the field and destroy it. So I didn't really see too many other ways for the deck to equip cards to other cards except with this girl's effect. It might be in those other 7 cards that aren't being shown here, but yeah, just something to keep in mind. And then for the last card, we have a spell, Hirogaru Sky, Hirogarism. If you control no monsters, pay 1,000 life points, special summon 1 level 4 or lower Hirogaru Sky monster from your deck in defense position. Then you can move 1 Hirogaru Sky monster you control to one of your main monster zones. You cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck the turn you activate this effect, except Hirogaru Sky monsters. If a Hirogaru Sky Link monster is special summoned, you can banish this card from the grave, then target 1 Hirogaru Sky monster in your grave, special summon it, but its effects on the field are negated until the end of the turn. You can only use each effect of Hirogaru Sky Hirogarism once per turn. So that does it for our 10 cards. Let's jump back up to the first of them, going through it card by card. And that brings us to Sora. I think is solid. It's a good starter for the deck. Standard Search has also the additional effect that works with the premise of the deck. So all in all, a good design here. Ellie, so like I was saying, is the poplar of the deck. The one thing about this card that I think could be easily abused is that third effect where you can special summon a Hirogaru Sky monster in your grave. So the Link monsters, since this can summon the Link monsters from the grave, this could be pretty busted, since a lot of those Link monsters, and I'll get to them when I get to them, but they all have a pretty powerful suite of effects there. So kind of like with the spell card, where when you use that graveyard effect to special summon a Hirogaru Sky monster, but its effects are negated until the end of the turn, maybe you slap something like that on here. But otherwise, I think this card is pretty good for the deck as well. So Princess, the basic premise here is that you have 1 Sky monster, you special summon her, then bring out a Link 2, special summon with her effect another Sky monster from your graveyard, and then go into one of your Link 3s. So on the whole, I think it's fine. I don't think there's really too much to be abused by the cards that you're able to send to from the deck to the grave. So I think all of this is fine. It's a good extender for the deck. And now we get into the Link monsters. So just a general note for all the Link monsters, they all seem to have some sort of quick effect. And those need to be taken into consideration with how easily you're able to trigger then their other effects. So for example, this one and the next one can move any of your Hirogaru Sky monsters to a main monster zone. And then if this card is moved to a different monster zone, you can target 1 monster on the field and destroy it. The next one will target 1 spell trap on the field and destroy it. If this seems like a problem, then my one recommendation here would be with that quick effect that it can't move itself. So Cure Sky can't move itself, and Cure Prism can't move itself. Otherwise, it essentially becomes a quick effect. You can target 1 monster on the field and destroy it. And that's on a Link 2 that's pretty easy to bring out. In a similar light, Cure Prism becomes a quick effect. You can target 1 spell or trap on the field and destroy it. So quick effects, especially removal effects, tend to either have some sort of condition or stipulation attached, which the condition for it is fine. It's the fact that the card itself can also meet that condition. So it's not really much of a condition to be able, or it's not too difficult to meet. So that's why I say maybe slap on that it can't move itself. But if you have 2 of them, then they can work with each other to start popping your opponent's cards. And then similar recommendation to your Cure Wing and Cure Butterfly. Again, this isn't a destruction effect, but it is a pretty powerful negation effect, and a quick effect at that. Typically, those quick effect negations are when your opponent activates something, right? Or if there was something that can just negate something at will, it wouldn't be a quick effect, or it would have some sort of cost to it or something like that. But this card can just straight up negate a face-up monster your opponent controls on their turn when they're trying to do something. And then similarly, the Cure Butterfly can negate any spell or trap. If your opponent activates a normal or quick play spell or normal trap, it can just straight up be negated, and there's nothing that you need to do to be able to meet that effect. So similarly, I think just stapling a condition on here or a cost on here Or maybe flip the effect around where you have to move one other Hirogaru Sky monster, and then you can negate the spell trap, or you can negate the monster with your wing, respectively. The rank 3s, I think for the noble, this is a lot more suitable, right? You have a quick effect Omni negate, and it comes with that banish at the end, but on a link 3, I suppose that's fine. But it negates a spell or trap card or a monster effect, and then you have to banish 2 Hirogaru Sky cards from your graveyard. So it's not like the other 4 that we just saw. It's not like a costless effect. This one, actually, you have to do something to meet it, and your opponent has to do something to be able to trigger this effect. So I think this is a good design for the deck. I also like that first effect to be able to provide protection based on co-linking. So I think that works well for a link-themed deck. And then Cure Majesty, you could probably simplify the PSCT thing. You can probably simplify the wording here. So something like monsters you control that are equipped with an equip card cannot be destroyed by card effects, just to lower the number of words here. Otherwise, similar idea here. You have this effect where when it's link summoned, it equips something automatically. So then it will theoretically gain this quick effect where you can target one card on the field and destroy it. I'm not so much against that, because this is a link 3, A, and then B, it does have the condition of needing to be equipped with an equip card. So I think it's fine, but that goes back to my earlier point where why do the link 2s have similar effects of destroying and negating, but they don't have a condition or they don't have a cost or something like that attached. So that's my feedback. I think the link 3s are well designed. I think the link 2s might have just some things to work out there to not make them so easily abusable, especially considering the fact that the deck has a couple of ways, at least from the 10 cards that we're seeing here, to special summon back the monsters from your graveyard to continue using their effects. The spell card, I think, is fine. I've talked about in previous reviews of special summoning from the deck needs to come with cost or stipulations attached to it, and you have both. The pay 1,000 life points isn't that big of a deal, but at least you have the if you control no monsters, so I think that helps balance out this card. The second effect is also good, and I like that you put that condition on there that the effects of that monster are negated until the end of the turn, and that's what I'm talking about, where those easily abusable link monster effects, you're able to dial it back when you have the ability to special summon at will from at will from the graveyard, and you're able to balance it out that way. So overall, on the design, I give it a 9. This looks like a pretty smooth operation. It looks like you can easily link climb like the submission mentioned. So I like the way that the deck works. I like the premise of it. I think it's very easy to understand. The effects are pretty straightforward. On creativity, I give a 7. So I'm not overly familiar with the source material, so I'm not going to comment on how well it's adapted. But I do like the hopping monster zone aspect. I think that's an underutilized thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! For some reason, it still hasn't become much of a thing that Konami leverages, especially like creating an entire archetype that works off moving monster zones to be able to trigger effects. I'm surprised we haven't actually seen something like that already. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, you've got a pretty standard suite of effects. You've got your searcher, you've got your extender, you've got your link bosses and your link climbing. So I give the creativity a 7. And then on balance, I give it a 7 as well. Again, just some holdups with the number of quick effects that are those quick effects being disruptions, whether that be destroying or negating an opponent's card. So particularly on those mini bosses, those link 2s. But otherwise, I think the deck is pretty well balanced. So that gives it an average score of 7.7. Thank you, Chronojet, for your submission. This submission is by Ashin Cucumber, an archetype called Chainsaw Man based on the anime with the same name. The submission did mention that there are spoilers involved with the 10 cards submitted, so if you are in the process of watching this anime or intend to watch it, you have been warned. There are spoilers. Spoiler alert. Look away, look away. All right, here we go. Starting off with Denji the Chainsaw Man, you can target one monster in either grave, special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, that monster becomes Fiend until the end of the next turn. You can only special summon Denji the Chainsaw Man once per turn this way. When a monster you control destroys an opponent's Fiend monster by battle, you can add one Fiend monster from your deck or grave to your hand, except Denji the Chainsaw Man. You can only use this effect of Denji the Chainsaw Man once per turn. Public Devil Hunter Aki, if a monster or monsters are sent to the grave, except during the damage step, send one Denji from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon this card from your hand and draw one card. I think if you're just specifically referring to Denji the Chainsaw Man, you don't need the word monster here. Once per turn, you can target one face-up monster on the field. It becomes Fiend until the end of the next turn. You can only use each effect of the Public Devil Hunter once per turn. Next, Power the Blood Devil. You can target one face-up monster on the field, special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, that monster becomes Fiend until the end of the next turn. You can only special summon Power the Blood Devil once per turn this way. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add one monster from your deck to your hand that specifically lists the card Denji in its text, except Power the Blood Devil. You can only use this effect of Power the Blood Devil once per turn. Public Devil Hunter Makima. If this card is in your hand, you can send one Denji from your deck to the grave, special summon this card. Also, you cannot activate monster effects for the rest of the turn except Dark Fiend monsters. If this card is special summoned, you can add one Public Devil Safety spell or trap from your deck to your hand, then tribute one face-up level 6 or lower Dark Fiend monster you control. You can only use each effect of the Public Devil Hunter once per turn. Next is Katana Man Hybrid Devil. The first time this card would be destroyed by battle, each turn it is not destroyed. If this card is sent to the grave by a card effect, target one monster on your opponent's field, destroy it. And if you do, add one Hybrid Devil monster or one Denji the Chainsaw Man from your deck to your hand, except Katana Man Hybrid Devil. Also, you cannot activate monster effects for the rest of the turn except Dark Fiend monsters. You can only use this effect of Katana Man Hybrid Devil once per turn. Now we get into the fusions. Jigoku Hell Devil. Materials: 5 level 6 Dark Fiend monsters. Must be fusion summoned. Cannot be used as fusion material. For each banished card, this card gains 100 attack. If this card is special summoned, you can target one monster in your opponent's field on your opponent's field. Banish it, and if you do, you can banish all face-up spell and trap cards on the field and in your opponent's graveyard. If this card leaves the field, return all of your opponent's banished spell and traps to the grave, and if you do, your opponent takes 400 damage for each card returned to their grave. You can only use each effect of Jigoku once per turn. And then for the final monster, we have Chainsaw Man Devil, Hero of Hell. The materials are Pochita, the Chainsaw Devil, and one Chainsaw Man monster. So that first material I don't think we saw, so can't fully grade this card without that, but a fusion summon of this card can only be done with the above fusion materials. Cannot be used as fusion material. For each banished monster and monsters in the graveyard, this card gains 100 attack. Cannot be destroyed by opponent's card effects while controlling a set card in your spell trap zone. During the main phase, quick effect, you can banish one card on your opponent's field. During the end phase, you can target one card in the graveyard or that's banished, place it on the bottom of the deck. You can only use each effect of Chainsaw Devil, Hero of Hell once per turn. And then we have the Public Devil Safety Go Chainsaw Man. Quick play spell, add one Denji the Chainsaw Man or one monster from your deck to your hand that specifically lists the card Denji the Chainsaw Man in its text. During your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the grave, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one face-up monster on your opponent's field or in their grave. It becomes Fiend until the end of the turn. You can only use each effect of Public Devil Safety Go Chainsaw Man once per turn. Now we got the Trap, Special Division Operation Hell. Tribute one face-up Public Devil Hunter monster you control. Special summon one level 9 Dark Fiend Fusion monster from your extra deck, except a Chainsaw Man monster. So archetypal wise, it's just going to be one of the two that we saw. Ignoring its summoning conditions, but it cannot attack directly. Also, you can only special summon once for the rest of the turn. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one level 6 or lower Dark Fiend that is banished. Return it to the grave. You can only use one Special Division Operation Hell effect per turn, and only once that turn. And then finally, we have Public Devil Safety, the Returning. Banish 3 Dark Fiend monsters from your hand, field, and or graveyard, including Denji the Chainsaw Man. Special summon one Chainsaw Man Devil, Hero of Hell from your extra deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. When a card or effect is activated that targets a face-up Dark Fusion monster you control, except during the damage step, you can banish this card from your grave, negate that effect, and if you do destroy that card, you can only activate one Public Devil Safety Returning Hero once per turn. So that is our 10 cards. Again, this is another archetype where there are likely more cards in it, but we're just looking at the 10 that are submitted. So let's start off going back to Denji. So I think Denji on the whole is fine. It is a self-summonable level 4, which I guess used to be a bigger deal back in the day, maybe not so much now. I mean, any deck can splash this and target any monster on the graveyard and special summon it. Who cares if it becomes Fiend or not? You have a level 4 body on the board. Again, I don't think that's as big of a deal nowadays, but maybe it was back earlier in the day, so it just depends on what kind of era of power level you're going for. Otherwise, I think this card is solid design. Public Devil Hunter, again, another card I think is well designed for the deck. On Power the Blood Devil, so again, this is another one of those level 4s that are easily splashable. Who cares if you turn a Monster Fiend, you can get a level 4 on board. Again, not that big of a deal in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Probably, but if you're going for an older power level, then there's something to take into consideration. The effect, this first effect where you can only special summon Power the Blood Devil once per turn this way. So usually you see that stipulation on summoning conditions, not summoning effects. So since this is an effect, as noted by the fact that there is a semicolon there that you have to target and then special summon, I would just loop that into the hard once per turn, where you can only use each of the effects of Power the Blood Devil once per turn. And the reason I say that is because if your opponent were to block it, or if it were to be blocked in some sort of fashion, you could just keep triggering it. You can keep targeting a monster on the field and it keeps getting blocked, and you can just keep triggering it because it's not a hard once per turn until you actually special summon it. So to avoid the loops, I would just make that a hard once per turn as well. Otherwise, it's a solid card. The Makima, again, another solid card for the deck. No problems with this one. Katanaman Hybrid Devil. So again, since there are likely other cards in this archetype that we can't see, I can't say for certain how easily the deck can send this card to the grave, but that's notwithstanding, the fact that its condition is just sending it to the grave by a card effect that could be from hand, field, and then more importantly from the deck, the fact that you get a +2 off of it might be a bit too much. You can destroy a monster your opponent controls, and then you get a search. So I like the fact that it comes with the stipulation that you cannot activate monster effects for the rest of the turn except Dark Fiend monsters, but I still think that's a bit too powerful given the ease of the condition. So I would either make the condition a bit more difficult to meet, whether that be if this card is destroyed, or if this card is sent from hand or field to the grave by card effect, or I would cut out one of those two effects. You can either destroy a monster or you get the search, one or the other. So that's my feedback on this card. Going into the extra deck, so Jigoku, obviously it's not, you're probably not going to be special summoning it with its typical materials. You're going to use one of the traps that we saw to bring it out. Even so, I think it's fine. I don't think there's too much of an issue with this. Obviously, decks that rely on spells and traps, particularly spells and traps in their graveyard, could have some issue with the deck. But even then, they get them back when this card is removed from the field. Maybe lower that 400 to like 300, but I don't think that's really... you'd have to be in a very slow duel to really get a big burn off of this card. But I'm just saying 300 based on other cards similar to this. I don't usually see a big burn effect attached to them, so I would maybe lower that one. Otherwise, the card is fine. The other fusion, the Chainsaw Man Devil. So again, can't fully accurately grade it without seeing what Pochita, the Chainsaw Devil, looks like, but notwithstanding, for the most part, I think this card is fine as well. It does have that quick effect non-targeting removal, in this case banishing. So again, I'm not huge on those, but since it is the boss of the deck, since it does require at least some sort of resource investment to bring it out, at least based on the cards that we're looking at, I'd say it's fine. My other question about this card is really more of a question, it's not a critique, is that last effect where during the end phase you can target one card in the graveyard or that Spanish and place it on the bottom of the deck. I just wonder what's the purpose of that effect. It just seems a bit random. Again, it might be on some of the cards in the archetype that we're not seeing here, but based on the 10 that we're looking at, it just seems like there's not really a way for the deck to really leverage that effect. So I just wonder what's the purpose of it. The spell card. So personally, I'm not big on search spells that are quick plays unless there's a reason for them to be quick play. Like, for example, if they trigger the search in the end phase, or if there's some sort of other aspect to it that makes it worthwhile to be a quick play. Otherwise, I would just typically make search spells a normal spell, other than the fact that you can activate it on your opponent's turn, and then on your turn, you can use that graveyard effect. But the graveyard effect isn't like anything super crazy to write home about anyways. So I don't even think you need that, unless, again, there are other cards in this archetype that we're not seeing. So if you think this card was easily abusable with that second effect, then yeah, you can keep that stipulation in there that you can't use it the same turn it was sent to the grave. But overall, I think this card is fine. The search effect isn't busted or anything. So if you want to keep it a quick play, again, that's fine as well. I'm just giving my personal preference. And then we get into the traps. So the traps, I think, are both solid. So this is, there aren't, again, it special summons any level 9 Dark Fiend fusion. In terms of the archetypal ones, it's just the Jigoku. And of the non-archetypal ones, I think there's 3 out there. There's like the Yubel fusion. There's Kaleido Heart, which I think was probably the best of the ones to summon. There's one other one I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but even then, I don't think this card it's not that big of a deal to be able to bring out the non-archetypal ones. And I wonder if you had some sort of synergy in mind for any one of those 3, but I don't see it off the top of my head based on the 10 cards that we're seeing. And then finally, the last trap, again, solid, good way to be able to bring out your Chainsaw Man Devil without having to properly fusion summon it. So I think this card is good for the deck as well. Now to score the deck on the design, I give a 7. I think what you have here currently is very solid. I would like to see some more effects that play on the ability to turn those other monsters on the field or in the graveyard into fiends. I think only 1 card of the 10 that we saw here does anything like that. And then it's a bit difficult to comment on the cohesion since a few cards mentioned in these are not in the batch. So just being able to leverage these effects, kind of like what I mentioned with that fusion, being able to leverage these effects that are on here into one more into a cohesive strategy. So whether that be leveraging turning other monsters into fiends or being able to return monsters from the banishment to the bottom of the deck, there's got to be some sort of cohesiveness for why the deck functions the way it does instead of just slapping random effects on the deck. On creativity, I give a 6. I'm not familiar with the source material, so I'm not going to comment on how well or not it's adapted. I'll leave that to the comments. But as for the cards themselves, it's a pretty standard approach. You got your starter, your extender, your boss, your spells and traps that facilitate all of that. I do like the 2 bosses a lot. Again, it's just apart from the comments on cohesion and then maybe some of the balance commentary. But overall, it's a pretty standard design. And then balance-wise, I give it an 8. Katana, again, has that easy to trigger +2, so I'm not a fan of it. Chainsaw Man Devil has that quick effect, non-targeting banishing, so also not a fan of it, but in my estimation, it's not super easy to bring him out, so maybe it's fine on it anyways. But overall, I think you've got a good assortment of ignition effects, trigger effects, cost, and stipulations, so the balance is very solid, and that gives an average score of 7. Thank you, Ashin Cucumber, for your submission of the Chainsaw Man archetype. And for those of you interested in submitting, you can find the link to submit in the description below, and I will see you guys with more custom reviews in 2 weeks.